Nah, champ is not okay. It's not okay, guys. Hey guys, my name is Shogo. I'm a Challenger ADC main, and today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to play Smolder and show you how to use this new champion to gain LP. Okay, so first thing I want to go over with this champ is your rune setup. We're going to be going with precision, and this is almost always going to be the correct runes for you. The main difference is going to be between health against harder lane matchups like Caitlyn, Varus, Draven, things like that, versus health scaling. You want to take health scaling when you have a relatively free lane. I'll explain each and every one of these runes, starting with PTA. I think PTA is a must on this champ. I don't think he gains a lot of value out of having a lot of attack speed, so lethal tempo is kind of useless. Conqueror is just super hard to stack, so it's really hard to get much value out of it. And then we're left with fleet footwork and PTA. And I think fleet footwork is okay in lanes where you're getting bullied really hard, but I think PTA overall provides the best results considering how easy it is for Smolder to proc it and the way his trading patterns work. For the rest of the runes, it's just going to be pretty standard. I think Presence of Mind is by far the best secondary rune for Smolder because he has some mana issues early on, and you really need this crutch in order to get through early laning and get through skirmishes and being able to fight when you don't have your Essence Reaver yet. Once you have your Essence Reaver, you don't have any mana issues at all, but Presence of Mind definitely helps you get to that stage. Legend Bloodline, do not skip this rune. This rune is great because the explosion damage actually procs lifesteal. So you really want to take this rune because you get a lot of HP from your Q once it has a big explosion damage. Cut down, we just take cut down to help us take down tanks. Nothing too complicated. And then Boots and Biscuits, I found those to be the best secondary rune because we really need to get to our first item as soon as possible. I don't really want to spend 300 gold on Boots when I can be building towards my Essence Reaver. Now, last but not least is Biscuit Delivery. I think Biscuit Delivery is a great crutch for a weak early champion like Smolder. Kinda lack mana in the first few levels of the game until you have the Essence Reaver at least. So having extra mana in your pool and being able to use this to have a couple of extra abilities to push in a wave really comes a long way. So Presence of Mind and Biscuits definitely help you get to that stage where you have your Essence Reaver and don't need to worry about mana as much. So I think this rune page is optimal. The only thing you should be swapping is flat health and health scaling. That's the only runes that you should ever need to change. So that's for runes. For summoner spells, I've been liking Ghost a lot. Smolder's hitbox is super small. So with Ghost, if you have good movement, you're going to be able to dodge a lot of spells by running around with Ghost and E active and just like doing circles around them. I think Ghost is great, but some games you're gonna need Cleanse, and Cleanse is perfectly fine too. And in harder lanes, you might need to take heal just to get through early laning without getting doped. Okay, next up we have abilities. So I'm just gonna quickly run through everything. His passive enhances his abilities based on how many stacks he has. Now you get stacks by either last hitting something with Q or by hitting enemies with an ability. It doesn't matter what ability it is, as long as you hit an enemy champion with it. Your goal in the early game should be to get to 25 stacks as early as possible, because as soon as you hit 25 stacks, your Q gains an extra effect. It becomes an AoE. So once it does, it becomes a lot easier to gain more stacks, right? So we want to get to those 25 stacks as soon as possible, which is why we have some crutch runes like Presence of Mind and Biscuit Delivery. We just want to get as many stacks as we can during the early laning phase. His W is a straight line skill shot. It's pretty straightforward, but it's quite hard to hit from max range. So you want to be waiting for your support to hit CC ability. Even a slow is okay, unless you have a really guaranteed hit. You don't really want to be throwing it just for fun, just to see if it lands, because more often than not, you're just going to be ending up wasting 60 mana that could be used to farm some more stacks with Q. His E ability is really interesting, and it's the hardest ability to use for Smolder. You start flying while firing fire, and you can go over walls with this. Now, this ability is the hardest ability to use because you can't use it as liberally as your Q and W and even your R, because this is the only way you can reposition. It's important to note that it's pretty hard to hit Smolder when he's flying, because he gets an insane movement speed boost when he presses E, and his hitbox is already quite small. So you want to use this to dodge some of the key abilities in a massive fight. So let's say they have a Yone, you want to be saving this to dodge the Yone R really quickly, moving out of the way as quickly as possible. This should be used to either dodge a key ability or to go over a wall to reposition yourself. Both are very valid choices, but you need to be really selective of how you use your E. His R is pretty straightforward. It just calls a dragon that burns for a lot of damage, and when you have a lot of stacks and you have the burn effect, the ult is really useful. I love this ult. It's severely underrated. I think it's very strong. Using it is pretty simple. You just use it when enemies are clumped up. It also heals you for a little bit, a tiny amount, not super massive. So the main thing is just going to be using it when enemies are clumped up. If you have a Jarvan ult or whatever Orianna ult on your team, you just want to use your ult as a follow-up to theirs. So his abilities are pretty straightforward. I think the only hard part about playing Smolder is using your E efficiently. Okay, when it comes to what ability to max first, it's just always going to be Q first, and then E, and then W, and of course you put a point in R whenever you get the chance to. Q, leveling it up, reduces the cooldown and increases the damage. Now, reducing the cooldown is the really big deal because we want to be able to get as many stacks as we can. Having your E max takes the cooldown from 24 seconds to 16 seconds, providing you with a lot of utility and a lot of escape tools to move around the team fight and really take over the way the Smolder should. So I would go with Q and then E and then W last, and put a point in R whenever you get the chance to. Okay, so the way you want to be laning with this champ is pretty straightforward. You want to hit 25 stacks as quickly as possible, and then use that to kind of gain more control of the lane. This champ has no control early into the game, but your objective as Smolder is to get to your Essence Weaver and get as many stacks as possible early game. You're not really looking to all in, you're not really looking to fight. You can go for quick trades, and your trading pattern is gonna look like this. It's just gonna be auto Q and then another auto. Auto Q and then another auto. Now, the reason why we don't Q and then auto is because it feels a lot clunkier. You're going to see this if you play the champ enough. I'm just going to put a target dummy by its own. But when you auto Q, it comes a lot faster than if you use Q and then auto. You see, it was a lot slower. So you always want to be auto Q and then auto. This is like the simple trading pattern, and this also procs PTA. So the more advanced combo would just be auto Q, auto W, and then auto E. You can always, he has a pretty long auto attack animation, so you always want to cancel it with some other ability in quick succession, right? So auto Q, proc the PTA, auto W, and then auto and E, right? Super simple. He can actually do a lot of damage in quick trades, but you almost never want to all in on this champ because he is relatively weak early game. So your main objective is just going to scale up, get as many stacks as possible, and get to your 2-item power spike. If you manage to get to the mid game without being massively behind, you outscale most AD carries, and you're going to be able to take over team fights. So we talked about how to play the early to mid game and how important it is to just get as many stacks as possible. We have not talked about how to play team fights. So team fighting with this champ is pretty straightforward. You just want to auto attack and Q as many times as possible, just whoever is standing next to you. You don't need to do anything crazy. You just DPS them down. You actually do a decent amount of DPS with 2 items, and then you save your E for repositioning. If someone goes in on you, you always want to have your E to create space from them, right? And then ult, as we said, just whenever enemy team is clumped up, we just hit R, and it's going to do a lot of damage. So that's how you want to play team fights, and once you have this Elder buff, that's when you really start having fun as Smolder. And people think that Smolder stops scaling once he hits 225 stacks because his Q doesn't evolve anymore, but all of his abilities have some sort of scaling with his passive. You can see 40% on his Q, 55% on his W, and 20% on his E. So you always want to keep stacking even once you're finished with hitting 225 stacks and getting the Elder buff. The Elder buff actually also scales off of the amount of stacks you have. So the more stacks you have, the higher HP the execute is going to be. So it's super crucial to not stop farming, not stop stacking. And during the mid to late game, you really want to take over the map and start getting as many resources as possible. So the way to do it is just to go mid as usual. Once bot lane turret falls at 14 minutes or whatever, you go mid, and then every time you finish clearing a wave, just hop into your jungle and start clearing. You want to last it as many jungle camps as possible with your Q, and you're gonna have some lifesteal and you have your Essence Reaver, so you never really run out of resources. Like, you never actually need to reset. So we want to be really efficient with where we move on the map. The way we play this champion in the mid to late game is just farm. It's a super simple champion, but you want to be able to maximize your farm. You want to be efficient with the way you move on the map, and you want to get as many stacks as possible. As far as support pairings go, what I've found is that Rakan is really good with Smolder, because Rakan can follow up with his E when Smolder uses his E and gap close that way, and then use W to chase even further. So it's really hard to get away from that duo. Leona can just lock them down in place for your full duration of your entire combo. And then other enchanters like Nami, Karma, Dulu, Milia are all pretty solid. They allow Smolder to have a little bit of extra mobility, extra damage. They have pretty good lane presence as well. So they're all really solid picks. Things like Thresh and Nautilus that can engage and create space for him are also pretty solid. Same goes for Rel and Alistar. And then some of the weaker enchanters like Sona, Jaina, and Yumi are still decent with him, but not optimal. At the bottom of the tier list, we have things that are really heavy poke, like Ashe, Senna, and Vel'Koz, or things that will just leave your lane, like Bard and Pyke. Please do not pick Bard with Smolder. Smolder will cry. That's pretty much my experience for support pairings. Let me know if you have any suggestions for a pairing that you don't see on here. How do you counter Smolder? Let's say enemy picked Smolder and you don't know what to pick. The easiest choices are going to be things that outrange him, because he's a short range ADC with no real gap closer. If he uses E for a gap close, he's going to be super vulnerable. So things like Caitlyn, Varus, Senna are all going to be really strong against him, or something that can abuse his weak early game, like Kalista or Draven. If you're good at those champs, they're going to do really well into Smolder. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be talking about is items. I see a lot of people overcomplicate things with Manamune and Triforce and garbage like that, and Lucidity Boots. I think it's all just garbage. I think if you stick to this, you're gonna be doing a lot more DPS than you are right now. The first item that we're gonna go for is always going to be the Essence Reaver. You always want to go for this before anything else. You don't need boots, you don't want a call, you want a Dorn's Blade, and then you want to rush the Essence Reaver as quickly as possible. But the important thing is that we need to be efficient and have enough mana to be able to stack and get to that late game monster status with Smolder. So Essence Reaver really helps a lot, and crit is a fantastic stat on Smolder because his Q actually scales off of critical strike chance. A lot of people didn't read that part for some reason. The second item we're going to be going for is the Navori Quick Blades. It gives great stats with critical strike, cooldown reduction, and flat AD. It also amplifies your ability damage based off of your critical strike chance. That's also a part of why we want to keep building crit items down the road, is for the Navori Quick Blades to amplify our spell damage even more. Because Smolder is a caster, he doesn't really rely on attack speed and auto attacks that much. He's really an AD caster, similar to Ezreal, but also scales with crit, which is what makes him a little bit more unique. And you should be going for this combo every single game, without a shadow of doubt. The next thing we're going to be talking about is boots. I see a lot of confusion about boots and people suggesting Lucidity Boots. I think Lucidity Boots are garbage on this champ, and I'll explain why. This build has 0 attack speed. Kind of took a long pause there, didn't I? Now, because this build has no attack speed in any of the items that we're buying, his attack speed is going to be really low, and it's going to feel real bad when we try to weave in auto attacks in between spells, as you should, because that will maximize your DPS and get more cooldown reduction thanks to your Navori quick blades. Having attack speed boots as your attack speed item really goes a long way, because 35% attack speed for just 800 gold is super efficient. This is the most efficient attack speed item in the game. And if you successfully weave in auto attacks with the added attack speed, the cooldown reduction that you're going to be getting from Navori quick blades will outweigh the cooldown reduction that you're going to keep getting from lucidity boots. Now, sometimes you would buy boots before completing the quick blades. That's fine. I just put the boots in here to amplify how important this 2-item power spike is. Now, third item is pretty straightforward. You want to go for shield bow if they have no tanks or you have no problem getting through their tanks. Lord Doms if you do have a problem with dealing with the tanks. This is pretty straightforward. Shield bow is a fantastic item on him. He needs the extra survivability as a low range AD carry, and he benefits greatly from lifesteal because of the way his Q functions. His Q explosion damage actually benefits from lifesteal, so building lifesteal on this champ is a must. We talked about this with taking the Rune Legend Bloodline, which is fantastic. But you're going to be getting to a stage where you press Q on a wave and you heal for 400 damage with just a shield bow, which is great for a champion like Smolder that wants to get in and out of a fight and then continue fighting, replenish his resources, and then go back to the fight. And then fourth item is just going to be whatever you didn't build as your third item. So if you build shield bow, you just go for Lord Dom's fourth. At this point, even if they don't have many tanks, by the time you finish your fourth item, everyone's gonna be pretty high level, which means they'll have a lot of base armor. So the armor pen actually comes in handy even if they don't have a ton of tanks. And then fifth item is going to be a little more situational. Ideally, we want a defensive item such as GA or a Moth Memorius if they have a lot of magic damage, or a Mercurial Scimitar if we need something to cleanse and we didn't take Summoner Cleanse for some reason. Those are all viable options, but truly by the time you reach this stage, you're going to be burning through the entire enemy team with no problem. You don't need more offensive stats at all. These are just suggestions, but you can also go for Bloodthirster if you really feel like, you know, going demon mode, or anything at all. But these are my three favorites for your last item. I think Smolder is a super unique champion with a super cool design and a relatively simple kit to understand. And once you get the hang of it, he's actually not super hard to play. He's very fun. So I really suggest that you, if you haven't already given him a try, that this video persuades you to go ahead and try it. And if you don't do well, feel free to stop by my stream and ask me a question, or, you know, if there's something I missed in this guide that you need to know. Playing Smolder on stream whenever I can all weekend. It's on the screen. It'll also be in the description down below. If you have another champion that you want me to make a guide on, I'll be more than happy to. I've been challenger for many years and I know every ADC pretty extensively. But I really wanted to make this guide because I think people don't really understand Smolder and don't really use him the way they should. And I think the champ has a lot of potential and he's very strong. I hope you guys have a blast playing him the same way I do. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye. Now the execute is really low damage, so you don't really get every kill. But holy fuck, my AoE damage there was fucking disgusting, man. What the fuck? Is this champ just OP? What the fuck is this damage, man?